Let's start with something that's extremely misunderstood: overpronation and oversupination. Pronation gets demonized a lot, but it's actually a healthy part of walking. And in every step you take, you need to both pronate and supinate in order to effectively dissipate the load of your foot striking the ground. The issue arises when you have excessive pronation, excessive supination. So let's talk about what a healthy foot strike is going to look like. Now, when your foot first hits the ground, what's going to happen is your ankle, actually let's use a prop. As your foot hits the ground, what's going to first happen is your ankle is going to hit on the outside of the foot first. And that's where the little small amount of supination is going to occur as the foot rolls outwards like this to try and absorb that load. So your foot will hit the ground first, and you're going to first absorb it with a little bit of supination. So you're going to roll outwards with the ankle to supinate. Then what's going to happen as your foot really makes good strike and good contact with the ground, it's going to roll into pronation. So all these bones here are going to flatten and roll into pronation. And you can see how the toes spread as that occurs. That's your body absorbing the load. The foot will actually spread to try and absorb the load of contacting the ground. Oversupination is going to occur when instead of, as your foot hits the ground, instead of rolling into that pronation, you actually remain in supination. So you remain with the foot turned out. So the arch ends up being too high on this side, and you end up with all the weight going through the outside of your foot. Now this creates a lot of issues because if the weight stays in the outside of your foot and doesn't roll to the center, then it's going to shunt up the outside of your body through to your ITB and through to the outside of your hip. Now in OP patients, what your adductors will try and do is they will contract to try and pull the weight back from the outside into the center of the body again to try and protect the knee and to try and protect the outside of the hip. And of course, knowing OP, this is going to become overworked, it's going to create fatigue, it's going to create tightness and eventually osteitis pubis. Overpronation is the opposite. So your foot lands, you go from your supinated position into your pronated position, but instead of stopping, you keep going and you end up completely flattening the foot entirely into the ground and rolling the ankle inwards. And overpronation means that you're shunting the load, and it often leads to knocked knees as your knee drives inward. And so essentially what's happening is that the knee is going to drop in, and you're going to drop all the pressure towards the center line of the body. So of course your adductors are going to brace and contract to try and absorb that load, that rolling in force that's really going through your body, and to try and control it. And of course this is going to tire them, overwork them, and lead to osteitis pubis. Fixing OP is not about trying to stop pronation and stop supination. It's about trying to get them back to a healthy range. And there are muscles that exist in the back of your leg, and they attach all the way through to every bone in the arch of your foot. And their job is to draw up and relax and stretch the arch. So when they're functioning well, they will ensure that correct supination and correct pronation is taking place. And that's what needs to be trained to fix osteitis pubis. Correct pronation and correct supination. You don't want to be trying to use things like orthotics to artificially come in and correct those issues. Now keep watching, because in our next video we're going to talk about orthotics and why they aren't particularly effective in preventing osteitis pubis. Hey there. That video was probably really complicated. OP is really complicated. So why don't you let me explain it to you in person? Book in for a free 20-minute Skype consult. I can assess you, tell you what OP is, you can ask me as many questions as you like. We can go into detail about the Skype process and how it works, and we can start working on the things that you need to do to fix your OP and get back to your life. So please, book in for a free session. It's completely obligation free, and let's get started.